The next chart document that I want to show you is the feedback chart. Okay, when you click on this feedback chart, this also is introduced in Module 1, Session 2. And what this is, it lets people know when you're providing feedback, how we want to provide feedback. We want to be positive and supportive, but we also want to be able to push on our peers, right? Because when people tell you constantly, oh, that was great, it's lovely, and you feel good, but how can you change what you're doing? Because what we want to remind everybody about reflective practice is that it's the underlying fundamental part of reflective practice is change. You want to do something differently. You want to engage, you want to teach differently from how you're doing it currently, right? So to be able to do that, you want to be able to be pushed by your colleagues, but then also in a very safe space so that you can be brave, okay? And so way that we think about providing feedback, we have warm feedback, right? That they recognize and they highlight. And you can see in this chart that there's what are some examples of warm feedback. And then you want to also be specific when you're providing feedback that's driven by the evidence from the video, okay? And then there's cool feedback where you can be more analytical and discerning and probing, all right? And you're pushing a little bit more. And then there's hard feedback where you're really challenging and extending, and in this case, sometimes even pushing on institutional norms and departmental norms and how things are at that greater level. That might be, really get your community to look broadly across your programs and your practices to say, oh, wow, why do we do these things this way? Who are we privileging? And who are we excluding when we do have our practices in these ways, right? So when you think about how we provide feedback in a video reflection session, oftentimes we start with warm, right? And then we ease into cool, and then we might bounce back and forth between warm and cool before we get into hard. And sometimes we might get into hard feedback, and sometimes we won't. Oftentimes that depends on the educated presenter, and that's the role of the guide to monitor that, to check with the presenter beforehand how comfortable they are on how hard the feedback can go. And then the guide's responsibility is to protect the presenter while at the same time urging the community to provide that critical feedback, okay? And so that's the feedback chart, and you can download that and take a look at that.